amazing. What a dream this has been.
The Emmys, live Monday, September 14th on CTV and Crave.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
I got my first real six-string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played it till my face.
All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4 and up on YouTube Live. Brian Hayes and Dave Feschuk in here at the Toronto Star. How we doing, Dave?
Doing great, Hayes. Doing great.
Doing great. Feeling good. Feeling optimistic about tonight. Jay's chances to salvage a series that went against them last night.
Well, we just heard the great Bryan Adams with the summer of 69. For the Blue Jays, this is the summer of 677. You know what 677 is?
No.
It is the lowest OPS in all of Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position, and it belongs to your Toronto Blue Jays.
They have a stranglehold on so many statistics. You know, most overused bullpen, that's
Yep.
the Blue Jays. You know, worst OPS with runners in scoring position. You know, most innings pitched for the bullpen, like all this kind of stuff. Like, there's so many different things that they hold on to dearly, and they're just not letting go of.
Yep.
And as a result, it's why they're in the position they're in. And, you know, we have a tendency to overuse the same terminology on this show. Sometimes we find a crutch. All of us are guilty of it. One we use all the time is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You've heard this show before. You've heard us say it before. But I think we have the epitome of that example here with the lineup card just being released by the Blue Jays. Because you mentioned the team OPS with runners in scoring position. Do you know where Vladdy's numbers are with that particular statistic?
His is even lower than
His is lower than the team average.
Which is the worst in baseball.
Worst in baseball. So there isn't a Blue Jay fan on earth that isn't aware of the fact that this guy has not hit a home run at the Rogers Center this year. I don't believe he has an RBI at home in the last 18 games. And I think you looked it up. He's got like one in his last 20.
Something like that.
He's hitting second tonight. And I have been reluctant, and I owe our boy Richard Griffin an apology for this, because I pushed back on Griff. Griff has been advocating to move Vladdy down in the lineup for weeks. And I have reached that point. I have reached the Griff summit where I think it is embarrassing to the organization for them to continue to hit him where he's hitting in the lineup.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing it with the intention of winning in mind anymore. You were a couple months ago, and you said, in order for this to really work, we got to get this guy going. I could reason with that mentality, and it was an accurate one. A month ago, you said, there's still enough time where I think he can get hot and give us 50 or 60 games and maybe help us get in. That ship has sailed now. Now what you're doing is preferential treatment to the highest extreme, to the point where you are protecting an asset as opposed to putting the best club on the field. And I'm not saying take him out of the lineup. I'm not saying he's not going to play at first base. But Nathan Lucas made a massive mistake in the ninth inning last night. There's no disputing it. But Lucas has been very good recently. He's hitting, I think, seventh in the lineup tonight. Vladdy's hitting second. That is absolutely inexcusable. This guy, he can't hit. I don't care what he did late in the game last night. He slapped the double the opposite way. Every once in a while, he's going to barely hit the barrel, and he's going to find a gap in the outfield. His at-bat in the bottom of the first last night was a perfect example of why this guy is killing this team.
Yeah.
Scherzer's struggling, and he battles and gets out of it miraculously by only giving up one inning. Absolute miracle that Scherzer got through that with only giving up one. Bateman gets on, Lucas gets on. Here comes Vladdy. And what does he do? Lugo hung a slider there that should have been hit to Brampton.
Yes.
And he slaps at it and pops it up to first base. It's horrendous to watch him play. And to watch him, he's not making adjustments. He's nowhere close to it. And I'm sorry, the idea that you're gonna continue to hit him second, there's no other explanation other than $500 million, and we're gonna protect this guy.
Yeah.
At the cost of what might actually be in the best interest of a team having a chance to win a ball game tonight.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It really is.
It's absurd the way he's playing.
Because what you're basically saying, Hayes, by not moving this guy down the lineup, and it's a time-honored tradition in the game of baseball that when a guy isn't hitting, you move him down in the lineup because it just makes sense. To your point, you can't have him up there in key moments. You don't know you don't want him up there as much as your better hitters and your guys who are hotter hitters. And pretty much everybody on this team at one point or another has been hotter than Vladdy because Vladdy is as cold as you could possibly be cold. So for all those reasons, you don't want to do that. But you talk about the mistake Lucas made. Well, you wonder why a guy might make a mistake like that, feeling he's got to get to second base. You know why he might have felt like he's got to get to second base? Because the guy coming up behind him, Mr. Vladdy Guerrero Jr., is the only thing he's going to do is slap a single. Like, he is the world's most expensive singles hitter. So the idea that you were the tying run, which Lucas would have been, you're probably not the tying run on first, with Vladdy coming up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's you get jumpy when you know the 3-run homer's not coming anytime soon, right? I'm obviously it's a dumb play by Lucas.
It's not a smart play, but to your point, the idea that Vladdy's coming up,
to hit a home run, it's not happening.
No, he's probably going to hit into unfortunately, the 27th out of the game.
Yeah,
like realistically, he probably is. And listen, the moment of the game last night was actually Vladdy defensively. The throwing error he made last night broke open the whole game and changed everything. Defensively, he has played well. Keegan was in here yesterday. Keegan was writing about it last night. He's played very well at first base. The thing is, when you get Vladdy away from first base, literally, that's when you get into some trouble. When he's got to use his legs, his head a little bit more, possibly his arm, and make a nice play. Like him going sidearm here, like Tony Fernandez in his prime, it's an awful play. And it's more of a crushing play than Lucas trying to be overly ambitious when obviously it was unnecessary. It was stupid. He shouldn't have done it. He should have just stayed at first, given Vladdy his 1 millionth opportunity this year to break out. But it's just they're a desperate team. And I think probably Lucas is thinking, I just got to try to I'm making a desperate play.
Yeah.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's what happened last night.
But to your point, the idea that they're afraid to move this guy down the lineup, what does that say? Well, to me, it says, like, they're worried that it could get worse. You know what I mean? Like, his ego is so fragile and his self-confidence is so crushed right now that, he could actually be worse than he is if you move him to 6th or 7th in the lineup, which is where our good friend Rich Griffin has been long suggesting they should put him. And really, statistically, it would make sense to put him. But, like, that's what it says to me, is that they're concerned that they could, if he's lost now, he could be even more lost.
What is he
hitting
more
sixth.
lost than this?
Well, I don't know.
He's got like a 685 OPS.
But the counter argument is, if you're not afraid of that, like, what are you afraid of? Like, I guess you're afraid that, hey, this is year one of 14 years.
I think that's
at $500 million.
There's no other explanation for a team that has a long history and reputation of being tied to analytics, and I'm saying that probably loosely. There's no analytical definition for this. Like,
no.
there's nothing you can punch up that says this guy should be hitting second in the lineup when you're desperate to win, and your offense just runs out of steam every single night. Like, runners in scoring position, they had ample opportunities last night to break that game open.
Yeah.
And they just simply couldn't do it.
1 for 11.
Yeah, and it's obviously, I know the counter will be, well, who else? It's not like a lot of other guys are playing so great. Lucas has been hitting pretty well, and Kirk has been hitting pretty well. And Okamoto, he can be a lost cause at times, but he can hit for power. He's hitting 6th in your lineup tonight. Like, I'm not saying you put him even 8th or 9th. Even if he's 5th in the lineup, 6th in the lineup, there are other guys who are going to get that extra at bat if it comes to it in the 9th inning. And I think that analytically, statistically, simply looking at it, saying we are in this to win it, it's getting to a point now where they can't look people in the face and say that that's what's happening. This is about, I think, managing up and down. Ownership, you paid this guy $500 million. You don't want to be walking into the park and seeing this guy hit 7th or 8th, because then it really, that's a baseball story. Like, Vladdy's already a story throughout baseball because everyone's familiar with the stat that he hasn't hit a home run at home. But you put a guy like Vladdy Jr. 7th in the lineup, that's MLB Network stuff. That's ESPN.
Yeah.
that's everyone's like, man, that's how bad it is. And then again, I think you're right about his ego and you're trying to build him up. He's your guy. You're committed to him. And I don't get the impression his attitude is awful or anything like that. And it's not moving down the lineup. It's not. I'm not even saying it's like a penalty for hey, you made a horrible play last night, so you're going to be penalized. It's simply statistical.
It's smart
Relying
baseball.
on him to hit for you is not. It can't happen.
Yeah, and this is the team. To your point, Hayes, like this is the MIT Sloan Analytics Conference reigning analytical franchise of the year in all of sports, the Toronto Blue Jays. And to your point, there's not an analytical leg to stand on for
this guy
Vladdy
getting more at
number
bats.
2. Yeah, this guy getting more at bats. This guy being put in better situations, more favorable situations for himself. Like he should be hidden in this lineup, and yet he's being featured in this lineup. And yeah, to your point, like it does make you wonder about how much of this and how much of the contract. Just like the contract to me, the contract for me was a lot about optics. The contract for me was a lot about PR because he was the most popular player. He was the face of the franchise. He was a lovable guy with, who people enjoy buying his jersey, and, kind of being a fan of Vladdy is a fun thing to be, especially at the best of times when he's hitting 8 home runs in 18 playoff games. Yeah, being a fan of Vladdy is a great thing. But I mean, we all knew about the hesitation to sign Vladdy to a long-term deal at big money. And now we're starting to realize, yeah, there was a reason for the hesitation, and there's a reason why a lot of this now is about saving face, and kind of it's a bit like if you trying to wish it into existence, like he will come around, right? He will come around, and he's not coming around, and so it's defying any real statistical analytical explanation, and it's basically a strategy based on hope.
Yeah, I think it's based on hope, and it is based on probably the organization having an eye already on next season. Yeah. Which the fans don't want to hear that. Listen, they kind of put the white flag up at the trade deadline. Yes, they made some acquisitions that, Bateman's playing and Soriano's pitching, and we're going to see other guys, obviously, over the next, especially on the mound, who are going to pitch for them, that they did acquire at that point. But Atkins came on this show and said, yeah, we were sellers. Like, that's how we would define it.
Yeah.
And then, they got pretty hot and they stayed in the race. And at one point they were tied and they were actually in the third wild card spot. Now, they've lost a number of games and they've lost a few in a row. And you look at the standings and it's a different story. Vladdy is going to be here next year and going to start next year hitting second or third in the lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's going to happen. And they need it to happen, and they need this to be the blemish of the contract, short of the last couple of years, where everyone understands when he's 38, 39, and he's still likely here, it probably won't be overly productive. But of the 7 or 8 year prime, this has got to be the worst of the worst. And I think there is probably a case to be made that is what is happening here, too, is that they're not really believing that they can make the playoffs. Because if they were hyper-focused on that, I think Vladdy's in a different spot in the lineup. It kind of does speak to the relationship with him, making sure he feels good about where he stands on the team and what this is going to look like in the future. And listen, if it's going to crap out for them, because there's been other parts of it as well, right? Like Springer's not playing all the time. We saw it last night. Springer's he's not going to be a part of this team in the future. No. It's not going to happen. They're going to try young. Bateman's leading off every single night. He probably will every game the rest of the year. Should he be leading off every? I like him. I think he brings some speed. He's kind of an old school leadoff guy. But analytically, it doesn't scream what, again, the modern baseball mind might suggest. They're going to give guys a chance here, and I think that might also be a part of this Vladdy story. But it's just difficult to watch every night.
It really
when he's
is.
making throwing errors that break the game up. But on top of all that, like, dude, you're making a lot of money not just to hit. We'd like to see some hits, but you got to be a guy that you can rely on in the biggest moments of every single game. And last night, that was a blunder. It's a mental blunder. Yeah. That was a young Vladdy play. Not something we've seen really a lot the last couple of years.
It was a sloppy play. It was there was no doubt about it. It was bad on every level. But you talk about, would this be a huge headline? Like, if they moved Vladdy down the lineup. If today Schneider finally said, he's hitting 6th or he's hitting 5th or he's hitting 7th, like Griff has been advocating for. I don't know how. So it's a one-day story, but, look at Seattle. Like, Cal Raleigh had an MVP year last year, and he's been hitting down the lineup in Seattle because he hasn't been hitting. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
When you're not hitting, we move you down. Because guess what? You will get less opportunity, and we'll let the guys who are hitting get more.
And there's also an understanding. Once you start hitting, you go right back up.
Which is what's happening.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, no problem. You show us you're alive again, we will play you anywhere you want in the lineup.
And you wonder what that does.
We're not hoping you don't succeed.
And you wonder what you talk about. These guys are big on that whole culture stuff, right? Like the culture of the clubhouse. And, and when it becomes so obvious that a guy should be moved down, like, what does that do to your culture?
I think that's a legitimate question. Like, athletes are generally very happy that guys get paid.
Yeah.
I think on the outside, fans and media make a bigger deal of it. Like, how much is it? Most athletes are happy for each other. Hey, you got paid, good for you.
Yeah, they talked about that last year when Vladdy got paid.
Absolutely.
It made the locker room feel good.
Yes.
Because we're committed to winning because we want our guy. We want to lock up our guy. And they talked about that as one of the keys to that season.
100%.
Yeah.
And when the guy follows through and performs to that number, even more so.
Right.
Even when there are going to be guys that have to go, you say, hey, I understand it. When it possibly can turn is when guys have to go because you got the money and you're not pulling your weight.
Right.
And the team's losing. Then players possibly are like, what's going on here? And why is this guy hitting there? Man, I'm being penalized because I'm not doing this, that, or the other. Where this guy is getting what appears to be preferential treatment. I don't think there's any other way to describe it based on performance. Again, a month or two ago, it was hope, and I understood it. Now, you can't argue that anymore based on the way he's played. It's we'll see. We'll see what he's got tonight. And this is going to be tough. You got Miles starting. You got Arrighetti tomorrow on the mound. You effectively a couple of openers. The bullpen's going to be taxed. Scherzer was grinding last night. They're in a tough spot.
Well, and
the Royals are red hot. They continue to be red hot. And
it underlines. I mean, we were talking about that as everybody was anticipating. Once they got through the stretch of playing the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Rays, and everybody was kind of rubbing their hands together, going, "They've got the easiest schedule in baseball, and they got all these teams under 500." Like last night underlined, it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you play poorly, you're probably going to lose, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like it really, the quality of competition thing gets a little bit overemphasized because it's baseball. Like, teams get hot, teams get cold. Like, any team can beat any team, on any given night. And if you're just playing like a bunch of bad news bears out there, which is what they look like at times, hanging your head and making throwing errors and making dumb base running mistakes, which is what they did to lose that game. I mean, it really doesn't matter who's on the other side of the ball.
Right. And John Schneider has said this, too, that other teams are looking at them and saying, well, you're 5 games under 500.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
You
know what I mean?
Like, as it comes.
They're happy to play the Jays right now. Everyone else is thinking the same thing. Hey, this is kind of maybe a layup series or a series that's gettable. And the psychology of athletes, said it a million times. He's told us this story when he was in Carolina and the coaches looked at it like a 20-game stretch and said, we're winning this game, that game, this game, that game. It was an easy part of it. And he said they lost, I think they won two games or something like that. So sometimes you play down or up to your competition, and ultimately it comes down to the culture of the room and basically the fundamentals of a club. And the Jays have not proven that anyone should be overly optimistic when they play. So we'll see what they've got tonight. On the topic of dollars, we haven't got into this topic yet, but you and I were talking about it off the air with the Leafs. I'm sure a lot of them are probably in town by now. If not, they're going to be in the town by the next week or two. By Labor Day, they're pretty much all here. And camps are going to open up early this year. And there's an extra 2 games in the regular season, so an extra home game. Mm-hmm. There's 42 home games at Scotiabank Arena. And the Leafs this week, I guess, opened up the floodgates to tickets that are available, non-season ticket holding tickets. And a lot is made of the fact that tickets have gone up on average about 2%. Considering the coming off the season that they had last year, which is one of the most dreadful seasons of the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have been living here my whole life like you have, or within the vicinity, and have covered this team and followed this team and watched this team. Maybe I'm numb to it. I'm just not surprised.
No.
I don't know why anyone ever, like, it feels like it's an annual event. People will lose their mind. I can't believe it. guys, have we not been paying attention to the way this team operates? And it doesn't matter who the owner is. There's been countless owners, of this team in my lifetime, 5, 6, 7, 8 different incarnations, different CEOs, presidents, etc. It's a formality. If they win or lose, the tickets go up. And the reason they go up is because people pay for them.
Right.
And there's never revolting. There's never anyone that says, I'm not doing this anymore. Everyone continues to go. And what makes it more of a story over the previous number of years is the fact that they played so poorly. When they win, nobody talks about ticket prices.
No.
Nobody. And the fact is, this is one of the 4 or 5 largest markets in North America, probably right behind New York, LA, maybe Chicago, in terms of big money, lots of corporations, and they sell out. Like, it doesn't really, wins and losses have been irrelevant my whole life in terms of that building being packed and people maybe moaning about the ticket prices, but they pay them in the end. So that's the way it works. That's capitalism.
It's capitalism, and, they can do whatever they want. And to your point, like, it's the reality of this town, and it's sad for the average fan. And I hear from a lot of them, and I've written about a bunch of them over the years. But the bottom line is, it is the fact that the corporations, essentially colonized the arena, right? Like the main clients of the Toronto Maple Leafs season ticket department are corporate entities, right? That they don't care what the ticket costs. They're bringing their clients.
Yeah.
It's a prestige thing.
And you got to have it.
Law firms and banks and, big companies, they got to have the tickets. It becomes a client meeting or a client perk, whatever you want it to be. But because of that, like, they can charge crazy numbers, and you can have a situation where, because the tickets down on the bottom are so damn expensive, I was looking at it the other day, the last seat in the last row of the upper bowl, standing room only, for the opening night game against Montreal is going for $268.50.
Yeah.
Which to me, like, it seems absurd.
It's a crazy amount of money.
It's a lot of money.
You know what the truth is? Someone will be standing.
Someone will be there.
Someone will be standing there opening night. And they know that. And, would I love to live in a fantasy world where they give away 1,000 free tickets? Sure, that'd be great. It's not my business, though. It's not. I don't own the team, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. And do you expect it from any other business? And this is where, like, sports does this fascinating thing where you call them fans, but really you're customers.
Yes.
That's really what it is. And there's another element to it that is a reality, among people that I know that have been ticket holders for a long time. It's kind of like a slot machine. You've been pulling that slot 40 times, and the jackpot, you're terrified you're going to walk away when the jackpot hits.
Right.
So there's a number of season ticket holders that have had it for a long time, and every year they're like, I can't believe it, but I can't give it up, because what if this is the year?
Right.
Right? Like, I know personally, very close with someone who has been a ticket holder for over 40 years, season ticket holder. They've 4 times they've been to the conference final since they've been season ticket holders. 4 times. And it's been 24 years since the last one. They've obviously never had the benefit of being a season ticket holder and walking to that building for a Stanley Cup final. Now, they know they'd have to pay exorbitant amounts of money, but they'd have first access, and they would pay it, and they'd be like, hey, this is what we've been waiting for. They keep rolling it over because they're like, I don't know. I don't want to. What if this is the year? What if everything connects? And, it's just that. So you're right. It's corporate, but it's also there are some diehards and some hardcores that have had them, and they're terrified to give them up because, A, it's a lifestyle. B, you want to pass it on. I bring my kids to a game every year. It costs me a fortune.
Yeah.
It costs me a fortune. When everything's all in, I'm paying well over $1,000.
Right.
Well over $1,000.
There's no way to do it cheaper.
But I want to bring my kids to a game.
Right.
I'm lucky I can do that. I have access to tickets. I can get it and get them, and I get them down there, and we have a blast, and I want them to have that memory because I was lucky enough to have it when I was a kid. But it's incredibly expensive. Mm-hmm. But it's worth it for me because I want to be able to say I took my kids to a Leaf game.
No, that's fair. I just get kind of a little bit cynical about it when you hear people like Larry Tannenbaum. Larry Tannenbaum, when he was bidding adieu to Leafs Nation, when the announcement came out that, his stake in the team was being liquidated, and Rogers was taking 100% control, use that whole phrase that gets used by the proprietors of a lot of these organizations, especially heritage franchises, which is the Leafs are a public trust. MLSE is a public trust.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It's not just a team. It's not just a company.
Yeah.
It's not just a profit machine. It's a public trust. And when you say that, that's where it gets a little dicey. Like,
Sure.
if it's really a public trust, then
Well, he owned
why
it
don't you
for
look
30
out
years.
for some of the public that don't have $268.50 to stand in the last row of the upper bowl?
Larry's made billions and billions of dollars.
He's been on board for the entire time, and the prices didn't go down on his watch.
No, and he didn't. To my knowledge, he wasn't buying up 1,000 tickets a game and saying, I'm giving them out for charity.
No.
Again, not his obligation.
No, nobody's saying that.
But
don't say...
Save us. Don't patronize us on the way out.
That's exactly
And the last thought on this, too, like in terms of the season ticket holders, because they've added a home game this year, it didn't automatically go to the ticket holders. They were given first right to buy the 42nd game.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just, again, no one's crying over that. If you don't get access to games, you're like, wow, whatever. That's you can go to 41 other games. But where else is it like, wait a minute, I'm a ticket holder. Why are those not my seats?
Yeah.
Like, I know I've got to buy them, but, you get, exciting news. You get right of first refusal to buy the 42nd game.
One thing that reminds me of
very Leafy.
That reminds me of the one it was brought to my attention that this was the first off season where season ticket holders got notices, emails that said you can upgrade your seats.
Oh,
you know what that told people?
Interesting.
You know what that told people? There were people
that are leaving.
Who are leaving.
Yeah, that is interesting, and that speaks to, I think, some anxiety possibly, like they better start winning again this year.
And I think that it's just my understanding when I talk to people, like even for rich people, like it's getting expensive.
It's incredibly expensive, and if they stink, it's just not worth it.
Right.
Like for a lot of people, it'll get to a point where I might go to a few games. I'm not going to all those games. That's the reality. You got to pull your weight. They know that, and we'll see if they can do it this year. All right. Live Golf appears to be done. Tour Championship starting tomorrow. We'll get into that and more still to come. Jays Royals tonight. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
The beautiful game continues to shine on TSN.
That is sensational!
As the stars that took over the world are back in La Liga. Stream every match with a premium digital subscription only on TSN.
College football is so special.
All right, OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Trevor May in just over half an hour. Dan Rappaport will join us here in a moment. I guess it sounds like Live Golf has basically laid off their whole workforce.
Yeah.
Does that include the players? No,
I think it was more the office staff and the.
But if you're the players, I think they've all concluded this thing's done.
Yes.
There could be a Live Golf 2.0, whatever that possibly looks like.
Well, and that's what the CEO is saying.
Right. We're going to restart everything and reset everything and reset the books. But, it's the Titanic, and people are trying to get off.
For sure.
But the problem they have, and the players in particular, is guys like Rahm and DeChambeau and maybe Cam Smith and a couple of other guys who have name value. They may find a spot. Maybe it's on the PGA Tour. Maybe it's the DP World Tour. Maybe they're old enough, like a guy like Ian Poulter, who's made a ton of money and played forever, and he's like, all right, I'm done. Whatever. Okay. But there's also guys on that tour that are, the 30th ranked guy on Live Tour that's 30 years old. What the hell's that guy going to do?
Well,
because the PGA would have no interest in that.
No, you have to work your way back up. You're starting at the bottom.
What do you need Taylor Gooch for?
Right.
Or Harold Varner III? What do you need them for?
You don't need them.
There's nothing valuable, unfortunately, about them in terms of their golf presence on your tour. So I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are just going to have to work their way back up if they want to stay in the game, right? There's no other way. They're going to have to try and get some status on the lower tours and try and work their way up, because there's no way, to your point, there's no way they're just getting, fast-tracked back onto the main tour, especially now that you're looking at a 2028 situation with a very exclusive two-track system where track one is going to be for the best 120 players in the world.
Right. Well, even, track two, you got to be sensitive to that if you're Brian Rollup in the PGA Tour, because even that's going to feature some guys who've been on your tour for a long time.
Yeah.
That possibly could have gone to Live that didn't. But it also, there's a part of me that strategically wonders, you're trying to avoid track two basically being a Korn Ferry Tour.
Right.
And it doesn't help that players like McIlroy have already called it a Korn Ferry Tour. And I don't know if could ever sell it, but if you could get a major name from Live on that track, would that possibly lead to it feeling a little bit more substantial than just the minor leagues? I don't see...
Can you get Bryson?
Yeah,
Bryson's
not going to do it.
Bryson's too good.
And his ego's too big, he wouldn't do it, but could you get a handful of those names that people know?
Yeah.
Say, hey, we need you down here in track two.
The Tyrrell Hattons of the world.
Exactly. That might be a perfect example of it. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of dilemma that both sides are dealing with right now. The Tour Championship beginning this week down at East Lake. Here is Dan Rappaport, Dan on Golf host. He's been on the show many times. There he is. What's happening, Dan?
What's going on, boys? How you doing? Yes, Bryson will not be playing track two events. I can confirm that will never happen.
That's what we're fairly certain about. But, in terms of Live Golf, in terms of their players, their big-name players, Bryson, Rahm, maybe Cam Smith, Tyrrell Hatton, a couple of others, if you look into the future a year from now, where do you see them playing?
DP World Tour. I think that's kind of the established path back for guys who aren't Patrick Reed and Brooks Koepka. You have to remember, when Brooks came back, Liv was not in this position. Liv still had Saudi funding, so there was some motivation for the PGA Tour to actually, extend an olive branch, because they were trying to, give Liv a death blow. There's no reason for them now to play ball. And, we have seen guys who have gone to Liv, gone back to the DP World Tour. Laurie Cantor, I think, is the one. It's not going to be a household name, but it's an important precedent setter, and was able to get back onto the PGA Tour. So I think those guys will play a year in Europe. The top 10 finishers in the DP World Tour who don't already have PGA Tour cards at the end of the year, they move back onto the PGA Tour. I think they're going to have to earn their way back.
What about a guy like in any way, shape, or form, or is the bridge that's been burned just not something you can travel across?
I mean, so a guy like Rom and Bryson, because they won major championships recently, Rom in 2023 and Bryson in 2024, they when you win a major championship, you get a 5-year membership on the PGA Tour, and that 5 years hasn't ended yet, so they might get a little bit of a faster track back. But I don't know that Bryson's gonna want to come back. I don't think Bryson particularly enjoyed his time on the PGA Tour. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he left. It wasn't like Rahm where he was kind of one of the group. I think Bryson, he tried to get on the tour governance a bunch of times. It never happened. He had big disagreements with the PGA Tour about being allowed to film stuff on site. And I don't know if there's one person who actually might not go back and might just do his YouTube and play a handful of events around the world that aren't PGA Tour events, then play the majors. It is Bryson. So I can't imagine him sort of putting his tail between his legs and coming back. And I don't think the tour is going to give him some sort of get out of jail free card, but we'll see.
With Dan Rappaport. So in terms of the news that came out yesterday or this week, leading up to the Tour Championship, and it's almost like 2027 is just it's a formality, like it has to happen, but people just want to fast forward in golf and get through it. And once we get to 2028, that's when it's going to be track 1, track 2. They're completely changing the Tour Championship. It's going to be match play over the course of 2 weeks. Of the details that you're aware of what professional golf and the PGA Tour are going to look like a year from now, what sticks out to you, and do you think they got it right?
I think they did get it right. I think the biggest thing for me is these track 1 events are going to have 120 players and have a cut. And I think, Liv's maybe enduring legacy will be the changes that they, sort of hastened on the PGA Tour, obviously getting a lot more money. But these signature events, which we have right now, they were clearly a reaction to Liv. You have 70 to 80 players. You have no-cut events with huge money. It was a way to put money in the top players' pockets, guaranteed money. And I think they have not really, especially the no-cut aspect, I don't think they really resonate with fans. I think, there's a tried and true format for a golf tournament, and that's 120 players, and there's a tournament within the tournament to make the cut on Friday. And there's just a different energy at a tournament when everyone knows they're getting a paycheck no matter how badly they play on Thursday and Friday. So I think in that aspect, bringing back 120 players, bringing back a cut, and then, with the Tour Championship and with the sort of FedEx Cup playoffs, it's been 20 years that we've been doing this. It's not like it's brand new, and they don't enjoy the sort of elevated reputation among golf fans that the PGA Tour hoped they would. It's not enough to just say, these guys are playing for a lot of money. We saw that with Liv. We see that with every other sport. And people don't tune in to watch the NFL because of how much money Patrick Mahomes makes. If anything, it kind of turns people off. So the PGA Tour needs to do something to give these playoffs an identity. And I think hopefully, this match play thing, it becomes sort of a match play major type of feel, because there's the 4 biggest tournaments, really the 5 biggest tournaments in golf, being the majors and the Ryder Cup. PGA Tour doesn't own any of them. So that's a big problem, right? If you're a business and you're running a sport, it would be like the NFL not owning the Super Bowl. So they've got to try something. It's a big swing, and we'll see how it goes.
In terms of the prospects of them playing this match play Tour Championship at some exclusive private club throughout the U.S., are you buying that? And if so, what clubs do you think are legitimately on the radar?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of exclusive private clubs, and they're not all the same. So, the one they kind of floated out there is their wish list, the Cypress Points, the Seminoles. I can't really see it happening there. But if you look at, Rory today mentioned Olympic Club in San Francisco or Baltusrol in New Jersey. I think that's one of the reasons why this new format is so appealing, is because these great private clubs, unless it's a major championship, they don't want to have 120 players at their golf course with 30,000 fans every day. It's just not something that's attractive to the members. But if you bring a smaller footprint, if let's say, you get to the second week of this thing and there's only, 8 matches on the course at most, and maybe instead of 30,000 people, you let in 5,000 people, maybe they can go to somewhere like Cyprus, or maybe they can go to somewhere like Pine Valley. These courses don't need the publicity. They don't need the the prestige, if anything, sort of being so exclusive and so private is part of their mystique. So I'm sure they'll go to better places. Hopefully, St. Louis. When I tell people that aren't in golf that we have 3 events in August, they're supposed to do the playoffs, and they're in Memphis, St. Louis, and Atlanta in August. They're like, "What are you? Why would you ever do that?" So hopefully, we go to places that have a little bit better weather than we have right now.
Dan, there's a lot of speculation about what the whole new system might mean for the Canadian Open. Obviously, our TSN's Bob Weeks has been on this show talking about how it's very unlikely it would be a Track 2 event because of the investment that RBC has made. But if it's a Track 1 with 120 players, it can't really truly be an Open, with qualifiers and exemptions for Canadians and the rest of it. And there's also the option that it could fall into this proposed fall series of prestigious national opens, which I believe the Australian Open is on board with, and there could be some European Opens on board with. How do you see the Canadian Open to sort of falling into this new system? I
think it would probably be part of the fall international swing or system or whatever they're going to end up calling it. The Canadian Open's a proud national open, and it's been going on for a really long time, and I think you can't. It's not the Canadian Open if it's not an Open, and if it's not, filled with a lot of players from Canada. So, look, if the PGA Tour in the future is looking to play from, roughly speaking, February through August, that leaves a lot of months in the calendar to go to places outside of the United States. And I think if LIV has proven anything, it is, there is an appetite for big time golf tournaments outside of the United States. So it's a no-brainer for the PGA Tour to go to all these places that are around the world, and I do think that's where Canada will ultimately stand, because it's not the Canadian Open if it's just a PGA Tour event with 120 players and it's the same field as every other PGA Tour event.
But my question will be, and I can't imagine you have an answer on this, but I guess I'll ask you to speculate, like how many of the top players are going to be willing to jump around the world after a full PGA Tour season, after the amount of money they can make, they get through the majors, maybe they're playing a Ryder Cup that year, let me use this as an example. I'll create the schedule. They play the Tour Championship at the end of August. The Canadian Open is the second week of September. Then the Ryder Cup is the fourth week of September. Do you think Scheffler and McIlroy and them are going to come up and play? Or do you think they'll say, hey, we'll see you at the Ryder Cup?
I think that would be a great place for it to land in the schedule, because the guys like to play. We saw, I think it was 10 out of 12 played the Napa event, which was, a fall series event that had less money, less points, because they wanted to get some reps in for the Ryder Cup. It might have been the President's Cup. I can't remember, but I think it was the Ryder Cup. That would be awesome. That'd be a great place for because then I think a lot of the players would show up. And obviously, it's not going to be in November or December. So, yeah, if it's in September, kind of between a couple weeks after the Tour Championship and a couple weeks before whatever the international competition is that year, I think that would actually be a pretty decent landing spot.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe we figured it out right here.
That might be it. Yeah. That might be it.
I want credit if they end up doing that.
Yeah, Lawrence Applebaum, I'm going to have to send you a check.
100% he will.
For sure. So, Dan, obviously, looking at the Tour Championship, I guess the big news to my eye that I wasn't aware of was that Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, and obviously the betting favorite to win almost every tournament he plays, is suffering from hand, foot, and mouth disease, which he's blaming on having a couple of kids coming home from daycare. What did you make of that, and how do you think it might affect his fortunes here at East Lake?
Yeah, he said today he's probably about 95%, so it seems like he's on the mend. I always thought, I've never had hand, foot, and mouth disease, thankfully, no children. So I always thought that was pretty contagious. So I hope that no one else got hand, foot, and mouth disease. But you could see it last week. I think he shot a couple over par in the first round. He never does that, and he kind of improved as the week went on. So I don't expect him to be hampered at all by that this week.
Yeah, was he shaking hands and stuff after rounds?
That's what I was.
That's what I'm saying. It's a gross. It's not like a nice thing.
No, it's not.
Well, he said he had sores on his hands and sores on his throat. It sounds kind of painful.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, and it's also just what's the link between hands, feet, and mouth? It feels like we're just naming body parts here.
That's a great point too. I don't really know. I don't know how it got to that point. Obviously, there is something scientific behind it, but In terms of Scotty, is he your PGA Tour Player of the Year? Is there anyone that's even close?
Yeah, Wyndham Clark is close, I would say. Justin Thomas posted a long thing about this, and his sort of take was, if you ask the players themselves which year would they rather have, would Scotty rather have a year where he wins twice, he wins at the Amex and he wins in Memphis, and he's a bunch of top fives, including in 3 of the 4 major championships, or would he rather have a year where he won the U.S. Open and he won a playoff event and he won one more event? Yeah, I think if Wyndham Clark wins this week, it's going to be a very close vote. If he doesn't, or if Scotty wins this week, I think Scotty gets it. I'd vote for Scotty right now, but I think it's probably 70-30 right now.
Great stuff. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
There he is, Dan Rappaport, Dan on Golf. It's a very good point. I think Scotty would clearly take Wyndham Clark's season because that's the elusive major for him, too, right? If he won the U.S. Open, there's his career slam.
Yeah.
He'd take that in a heartbeat.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, he's so consistent, but you still got to get those big ones, and you got to get that career Grand Slam. So I don't disagree. It's.
I do wonder about that international series because, they're going. The Australian Open generally gets some players, like Rory was there last year.
Yeah.
Rory's been there before. Nicklaus used to go all the time. I don't know about the Scottish Open because it's always been right before the British Open. It made sense. Guys get over there, they get acclimated, they start playing. I can't imagine the Scottish Open would move, considering the fields they already get. They get such great fields.
Exactly.
And they have a title sponsor in Genesis who spends a lot of money on tour. That may stay as one of the elevated events. I don't know.
It can't be an Open if it's 120 players.
That's the thing.
Problem.
Exactly. And you can't have all the Scottish amateurs that make it in, and that's what makes it complicated. And the Canadian Open used to be in September. It's jockeyed around over the course of its history, but there may be something to that if you're not going to be on track one. If that's just not feasible, whether it's from a Canadian Open perspective because they don't want to lose their Open status, or if it's a PGA Tour perspective where it's like you don't fit into where we're at right now, regardless of who your title sponsor is, that second week of September might make some sense.
Yeah.
Like Tour Championship, week off, Canadian Open, week off, Ryder Cup or President's Cup.
Yeah.
Like if you can promote yourself as, hey, we're the tune-up tournament for all you big guys who are still playing.
Yep.
Anyway, a Ryder Cup year or lesser extent a President's Cup because European players may not be playing. But especially if it's on a North American soil.
That'd be great.
Like this year, the President's Cup is in the States.
Yeah.
Like you'd think they'd be like, yeah, we'll play. Sure, we'll come up and play, and then we'll all get together and go and do our thing,
You would hope. That would be a good scenario. I mean, part of me wonders, though, how much our pal Lawrence Applebaum and Golf Canada are really pushing for the Track 1, because the Track 1 in a big name town like this, we just talked about how much Toronto sports events charge for tickets.
Yes.
You want to sell those 3, those double-decker corporate suite boxes that cost, tens of thousands of dollars for the week. If you want to sell all that stuff, it's harder to sell it if you don't have a guaranteed Scheffler, McIlroy, all the big names. And the Track 1 will essentially be that. It'll be every big name every year, and it's like a license to print money.
Yeah. And in your in terms of marketing, you're absolutely right. You're marketing, hey, these guys are coming. You can't guarantee it with the international series.
Exactly.
And you're also in the heart of golf season if you're in June. Now, maybe it moves around a little bit, but if you're in June, you get into September, you could get some wonky weather. Not generally, but maybe the Leafs are in town, the NFL's starting up. There's different things going on. All right, Jays Royals tonight. We'll get back into that in about 15 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Trevor May coming up. There's a report out of ESPN that it sounds like Steph Curry and the Warriors are expected to discuss a contract extension that will keep him with the franchise his whole career, which feels appropriate. You know, I'm not expecting much out of Golden State this year over the next couple of years. They're in this weird transition where they're kind of waiting for Steph to, I guess, retire and Draymond to retire, and then I think Steve Kerr, like they're all just going to probably leave together, I would guess.
Yeah.
But he's been there his whole career. It's been such a remarkable career. He is the man in Golden State. He's best player in franchise history. Just seems right. Like he's kind of different from, you look at LeBron and KD. Those are the big three of the era. It's LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. The other two have been all over the place.
And to me, it's just a shame that Steph's not going to play in a relevant spot for the final few years of his career here. And I guess, to me, it was like when Steve Kerr announced he was coming back on a 2-year extension, it was like, well, then Steph's coming back.
Yeah.
Like, if Kerr might have left, maybe it would have been the signal that Steph is going to say, you know what, I'm going to try a couple years somewhere else to cap it off. And I'll always be a Warrior, and I'll always own this town. But you can go somewhere for a couple years and be competitively relevant and still come back and be the king of San Francisco.
Right. And he can still play, Steph.
Oh, no doubt.
His game still translates.
Yeah, he could contribute. Like if he would have made himself, you know, marketable. If he would have said, "Look, I'm going on the market here, and I'm gonna find another place to play," I mean, it would have been highly sought after. The Raptors would have been very interested in a guy like that. Yeah,
100%. The ties to Dell and him, you know, being here as a kid, his wife's from the area.
Yeah,
would have just been a grand slam. They would have done anything to get Steph.
And they need the shooting.
Exactly what they imagine him with Kawhi and Scotty. I mean, that would be a dream come true, but it doesn't sound as if Steph's got any interest in leaving. So he's a career Warrior. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
Instacart Tempo Basketball, Friday on TSN.
The Amazing Race Canada, all new, Tuesday at 9, 8 Central on CTV.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel. Brian Hayes, Dave Festjucker, Toronto Star. Trevor May coming up. A little arbitration later in the hour. Jays Royals tonight. Vladdy hitting second in the lineup, and John Schneider just spoke with the media, and he was basically sent out from the organization to explain why it still makes sense for Vladdy to hit that high in the lineup. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically said no one else is hitting. And this is we built the team with the idea that Vladdy was the centerpiece, and he's going to remain the centerpiece, even though he's not pulling his weight as his centerpiece.
Yeah.
So that's the difficulties of being the manager. You're the voice box, and maybe Schneider sees it the same way. Maybe he doesn't. A decision like this would not be on his plate. This would be if Schneider wanted to move him down the lineup, he would have to run that up the chain.
Oh, yeah.
And I would assume it was blocked or it would be blocked. Maybe they all see it the same way. Maybe John is speaking from his own heart. But, yeah, Vladdy, basically what he's saying, too, is like, get used to it. The final 29 games, Vladdy's hitting second or third. Like,
right.
They're not going to move him out of the top 2 or 3 of the lineup with 10 games to go if there's 7 games out of it at that point. They're just going to keep playing him there. Or they're going to shut him down at some point.
Yeah. I mean, what he's saying, it's just not true. I mean, like the last 30 days, I just look up the split. The last 30 days, I think a month is a pretty good sample size, Hayes, for batting order, right? Like, he's not hot. Like, his OPS the past 30 days is 617.
Right.
Which is abysmal. That's 15th on the club among anybody who's actually hit for the club. And, like Kirk's at 985. McAdoo's at 800, but to his point, though, there aren't a lot of, not exactly a murderer's row.
They got a lot of
issues. Bateman's at 768. He's been really good. Okamoto's at 742. He's hitting home runs at least. But yeah, they don't have a lot of hitters.
Well, and Schneider, again, paraphrasing, but he said he doesn't feel Vladdy should be punished. And again, notes that no other player is really, hammering the ball right now. And the lineup was designed to center around Vlad, which, yes, I understand that. When you broke camp 5 months ago, that was the plan. But he's not pulling his weight. And, again, the idea of it being considered a punishment is what I take issue with.
Yes.
No one's saying you're punishing a guy. It's not that he was late for curfew, so that's why you're moving him out of the lineup. It's not that, okay, he made a significant throwing error last night. We're going to punish him for that. It's that he can't hit. He literally doesn't hit for power at the Rogers Center. Like, he hasn't hit a home run this year. He's got 1 RBI at home in his last 20 games. It's just it's an empty calories comment.
It's crazy.
It's a cop out to suggest that, wow, you want to punish, like, you guys are pushing for Vladdy to move because you want him punished. No, I want him appropriately slotted based on production.
Exactly.
It's not a punishment.
It's not about
He's
punishment.
punishing you because he's not doing anything. He's killing you every single night.
It's not about punishment. It's about production. It's not about punishment. It's about competitive strategy. You want better hitters higher in the lineup.
Yes.
And I understand you don't have Babe Ruth right now. There's nobody on this team that's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. But relatively, there are guys who are hitting better, and they're hitting hotter. And so, just competitively, analytically, to your point earlier in the show, it just makes sense from a competitive standpoint, strategically, to say, you know what, you're a little cold right now, Vladdy. We're going to move you down a few slots, and we'll see how it goes. And guess what? If you start hitting, we'll move you back up.
That's right.
It's not that is a funny thing to say, that it's about punishment.
Yeah, we don't want to punish him. It's like, well, how about hold him to account to actually perform?
Yeah.
Like, no one at any point this year, to the credit of Vladdy, has suggested it's not a work ethic issue or a caring issue, or that he doesn't show up and seemingly have the same disposition every day. He's not running and hiding. He's talking. He's available. That's not the suggestion. Like no one is anti the mentality or the work ethic of Vlade Jr.
He's a good teammate.
Yeah, exactly.
He's cheering on his peers.
Yeah, he's a top step guy still. You know, someone hits a home run, the guy's grabbing the jacket, he's out there.
Yeah.
You know, he's excited for people. He
Not
wants it to work.
sulking.
No one's suggesting that. And I get we're on the outside looking in. It's probably even more positive in the background because I'm sure he's working his ass off to try to get things going.
That's what everybody says.
100%.
He takes a ton of swings in the cage, and he's working and working and working.
But this is a meritocracy. Sports
should be. It's not right now.
This is a clear evidence that it's not in terms of this particular situation. But that is the beauty of sports. It's you pull your own weight, and you're going to get everything you want and everything you need and everything you deserve. It's not punishment to say, hey, man, you're really killing us here, and we need someone that might not kill us tonight. Because the flip side of it is you're punishing the rest of the team.
That's the thing.
You know, like you're worried about the perception of punishing Vladdy at the stake of punishing other guys who should be getting those at bats.
Somebody else deserves to be hitting in second tonight, and it ain't Vladdy.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like I get it's complicated. We talked about the ticket prices in the last hour. It's a business. I understand it. And a guy like Vladdy, it rings out. It goes all the way up to the top. Anything that happens with him. But the guy's performance, unfortunately, has really been awful this year. And at home, it's been particularly terrible. And they're just not willing to adjust. Other guys are moving around the lineup. Vladdy's not. Here's former MLB pitcher and host of the Mayday podcast, back on OverDrive. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's Trevor May. Trevor, you can give us a player's perspective on this. You're aware of Vladdy and how poorly he's performing this year. He's really struggling. Hasn't hit a home run at the Dome this year. I think he's got one RBI in his last 20 games at the Dome, and yet he's hitting second again tonight. And John Schneider came out and said he doesn't feel he should be punishing him by moving him down the lineup. If you're a teammate or if you're a guy in that clubhouse, how do you respond to the treatment of Vladdy compared to maybe other guys who would be in the same situation?
Yeah, that's a great first question.
Right after it.
Yeah,
right after it.
I think that there's no question that there has been a precipitous drop off from last year to this year for Vladdy, and he is the $500 million man. He is going to be treated differently. I think that pretty much everyone. I mean, I bet everyone in this clubhouse knows that to a level. But to characterize it as some sort of punishment by moving a guy out of the 2 spot seems a little bit. I understand why that wouldn't land very well amongst the guys because it's about winning games at the end of the day, and you got to put your lineup together in a way that gets you to score the more runs than the other team, and that doesn't seem to be working right now. And the Jays are in the midst of it, just about. Along with everyone else, it seems like in the AL, and this thing is doable if you could just go on a little bit of run. So, it doesn't look great. And if I were a guy in that clubhouse, I wouldn't be super pumped about how rigid that sounds, but also anything I've ever heard about John Schneider and his relationship with his players is just about as good as it gets. So, I'm sure this is something that the guys are trying to understand, and they're trying to get Vladdy going because I think they know that if they want to make a real run at this thing and get back to the big dance, he's going to have to be part of that equation. It's just the way it needs to be, and I think it's just keep hoping that having him be in the same position he's been in or in the batting order will start to turn into those results, even though that's not remotely close to what we've seen so far this year.
Well, and that is another point that we have been talking about. Like, I totally agree. A month ago, it was like, you got to play this guy here because he's got to get at bats. The only way you can win is this guy gets hot. Now they got 29 games left, and we're so deep into the season. Like, at what point do you just concede like that's not actually the way to get in? Because I just don't know if Vladdy can do it right now. It's not that he's incapable of it at any point in his career. Of course he is, and of course he can, but we're 133 games into the season at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would wholly agree with that. I think that you got to make the best decision for the team to eke out just a couple more wins than these other teams are going to be. They're ending the season on against a whole bunch of teams that are not they're also in the hunt, but they're not, over 500 teams. They're beatable. Like the thing is set up. The pins are set up to be knocked down, and so you should be doing everything and trying everything you can to win those games. And I think also one element of this that is actually a benefit of moving a guy like Vladdy down the lineup is, as a pitcher, no matter how a guy's doing on the year, if they have a name like Vladimir Guerrero and they're batting second in the order, you hyper-focus on them and you don't want them to beat you. So you're bringing your best stuff. It's hard to kind of, there's 9 guys you got to prepare for. Even relievers have to do this. And so if you move him down, that kind of shows you might be able to get him less hyper-focused on beating Vladdy. And sometimes when something's off and everyone's still giving you their A game, you gotta catch him off guard again to get going. Sometimes that is something that happens. Bad the guy 7th, everyone's like, Vladdy doesn't have this year, and they don't take him quite as seriously. And suddenly he gets a couple more cookies than he would have gotten, and breaks out of it. Like that happens. That's why we move guys in the lineup. So a lot of times, so it might do the opposite. It might light a fire. It might get the opposing, the best arms of the opposing bullpen or the starter to kind of maybe overlook him here or there, and maybe he'll get a couple more hits. All that stuff happens as well, and it's one of those things, like you said, 29 games left. What could have hurt at this point?
Yeah, Trevor, that's a great question. What could hurt? And, we were noting earlier in the show that, Cal Raleigh, a guy who had an MVP season a year ago and has struggled this year, he's been moved down in the lineup with Seattle at times. And, of course, he's picked it up a little bit and hit better. But what do you think it says about Vladdy and maybe his confidence or his ego that they seem so unwilling to sort of bruise that ego or maybe even try to put a little nick in that confidence by moving him down the lineup? Do you think it says that they're worried about his confidence or about his ego in this instance, or how do you see it?
I mean, it's entirely possible, and not knowing Vladdy, outside of just a couple of really short conversations I've had with him, that could be part of the calculus. That would explain John Schneider's comments, right? That's why you would say something like that, is because you see it as adding, taking away or possibly hurting the situation or Vladdy somehow more than it would help him to move him down. And maybe that's a calculation they're making now. Do I know if that's based in any sort of conversation or anything that's ever happened? No, but that would explain the way it is being handled at this point.
We're chatting with Trevor May. It's tough news yesterday for the Jays and Shane Bieber that he's moved to the IL, and he said so many injury problems. He's had such a great career, and I'm curious where you stand on him and his stuff, and what not necessarily this injury in particular, but what your read is on what Shane Bieber is going to be in the future.
Shane, I've spent a lot of time playing against him, and I was on the Twins when he was coming up with Cleveland, and it was really, really frustrating that they found another Corey Kluber as soon as Corey Kluber left. It seems to always be happening over there in Cleveland. So he's always been able to spin the ball. That was apparent from the moment that he got up. He had this big curveball and this wipeout slider, which he continues to have. And he had a little bit more zip on the fastball, being 94, 95 at that time. But he's always really heavily relied on those breaking balls, and he was a workhorse for a bunch of years there until Tommy John got him, as it seems to get all of us at some point. So, but when it comes down to it, the nice thing about that being your calling card, being able to spin the ball and locate, that ages much better than throwing hard does. And so it's all about staying healthy for him. And I also think that it's been pretty clear to me that he's not a guy that's going to go out there and if something feels not great and it's going to impact his performance and the team's ability to win, he's pretty good at knowing when he needs to take the foot off the gas or not. And that can't be said for a lot of guys. Sometimes guys have a higher threshold of punishment and pain, and sometimes the performance has to suffer for a while before they're willing to admit that they're actually hurt. And so it might be a blessing in disguise too that he makes sure he's ready to go and ready to get big league hitters out. The only problem is it's happening less and less often now and covering less and less the game. So do I think he still has a runway ahead of him. Yeah, of course, he's not. He's I think 32, 33 years old. He's still got a few more years in the tank, and if he finds a good way to manage some of this nagging stuff that he's had going, and he has the ability to spin the ball like he has, and just to really rely on his ability to do that, there is a lot of quality pitching left in Shane Bieber, absolutely.
Well, Max Scherzer went last night, and he was grinding, man. He had a tough time kind of locating pitches early in that game, but he got himself out of some damage, and he kept going out there, and he's fun to watch. Like, he walks into like whenever he walks over the dugout, he's yelling at someone, and it may even be like positive yelling, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But he's still got some fire, in terms of like what he represents to you as an arm, as a pitcher yourself. The fact that he's still going every outing, he gets closer and closer to moving up the list of most strikeouts in MLB history. What do you make of Scherzer and the fact that he's still going like he did last night?
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me one bit after playing with Max for a year and getting to see him day in and day out. It's just when it comes down to it, he could be hurt, and his pitches could not be moving the way he wants to. He could be, he's going to be as prepared. He's going to know what he wants to do, and then he's going to just drive till the gas runs out. Like, that's just he's like, this is the thing I have that he believes no one else has, his ability to persevere and just continue going. So this is going to be a situation just like from start to start. You got to go out there and pry the ball out of his cold, dead fingers. He's going to do that for his career too. Like, he's going to have to be resoundingly told that his services are no longer needed, or because he's not going to stop until that happens. And that's just the way that Max is. And it is impressive. As someone who also believes that they have that ability, and myself, he's just a level that is unfathomable. If we told him just to walk in a straight line and don't stop until he can't go anymore, I don't know if he would ever stop.
That's a great way of putting it. The will is indomitable for sure. Can't say the same, Trevor, about a lot of the teams in the American League this year. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen an American League that's as subpar as it is. I mean, the Guardians are in the third wild card. They're a game above 500, but for much of the season, the third wild card has been below 500. And I don't believe in a 162-game season there's ever been a team make the playoffs with a sub-500 record, which is possible here still, given the real slowness of this so-called race for the third wild card. What do you make of that? I mean, when you look at all these teams from Toronto to Seattle to Baltimore to the Rangers to the Guardians, who've all struggled to just stay, and unsuccessfully to stay above 500, is there a trend there that you notice? Is it just a one-off year? What do you make of it?
Yeah, it is interesting. There's been one big indicator is, like, you look at how those teams are handling the trade deadline, and it shows kind of where their head's at going into next year, what they're planning for, what again that's going to look like after these negotiations happen. And I think there's a little bit of wait and see going on, and so maybe the urgency just isn't. It doesn't feel like the urgency is quite there. The players always feel it, but I just think that the way the front office and then even the fans start to feel that as well. Where I've heard this anecdotally from several people that are fans of several of those teams in that group, and they're just like, it's almost like you would rather not make it the year you go 500, because it just has felt so kind of lackadaisical up to that point that the hope's not really there. And that's kind of the fun of the postseason. You want to feel like you can get hot, you can get going, and there's it feels like that malaise is just around a little bit more than it has been in the past. And I don't know, there's a little bit of like content just to kind of get in, maybe from some of these front offices. And I mean, to be honest, this is predictable when you keep adding playoff teams every single year. You have to win less and less games to make it, and that very clearly will cause some of this. But I think that it's a combination, just a perfect storm of the uncertainty over next year, and like who's going to sign what, and the trade deadline kind of went crazy, but just a bunch of teams swapping teams that were kind of the same record and in division, and it was confusing. Like, there didn't seem to be a pattern or a rhyme or reason for a lot of it. And I'm up here in Seattle. This team is everyone who works in this office with me is a Mariners fan, and I just see it in their faces. They're just like, I mean, they'll mostly just say, I don't know about Cal Raleigh in the postseason right now, and that's just not exciting as it was last year. So it is an odd situation, but I think that once October comes, I think that stuff, people are seeing your team in October, it'll liven them up a little bit. But yeah, maybe the anticipation isn't what they're.
100%. Great stuff, Trevor. Thank you for doing this, man. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Trevor May, host of the Mayday podcast, former MLB pitcher himself. Once you get to the playoffs, it really doesn't matter what your record is. In terms of the hype for the first game, but then if you get pumped, you go, I never should have been that hyped.
Yeah.
Like that'll be the interesting thing. Do you get a Cinderella team that barely gets in or gets hot in September? Possible. Maybe it's a team like Seattle.
Yeah.
The AL West is still attainable for any of those teams.
Oh, yeah.
Between Houston and obviously Seattle.
I mean, yeah, Seattle's only 2.5 games out of the AL West lead, and they're 5 games under 500. It's incredible.
Yeah. So, maybe you find a way to get some home games in the wild card.
Yeah.
Someone's got to play at home in the AL West as of right now. But, yeah, once you get in, it changes things unless you get pumped pretty quickly. But, yeah, Jays-Royals tonight. We'll see how they respond last night. It was a tough one last night. Well, it's a big, every game's the most important game of the year now.
Of course.
Every single game is the most important game of the year. And you're coming off a loss that felt like you had ample opportunity, a lot of runners in scoring position, a lot of chances to break the game open offensively. Obviously you hate the last out being the last out, the way Lucas got caught off, I guess trying to take off and get second base last night. But how do you respond? We'll see. See what comes of it tonight. All right, arbitration coming up. Got some news out of the Edmonton Oilers training camp that hasn't even opened up yet. It's not overly positive in terms of some injury news. We'll tell you about that as well. And our best bets later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
is where legends are made as the PGA Tour's best chase the ultimate trophy.
Perfect.
The FedEx Cup playoffs conclude with the Tour Championship, August 27th to the 30th on TSN.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Just keep it safe with me. Anything you say will always stay with me. No matter what it is, it wouldn't make me leave.
All right, best bets coming up later in the hour. The NHL schedule has been released. You know, it's been out there, I guess, for a little while. But in terms of the network news and all that, and the American networks, TNT and ESPN, they got a number of games, 72 games on TNT, 100 on ESPN, 15 on ABC. Anyway, so it's come out, the 32 teams, which will soon be 34 because Bill Daly was speaking, saying, yeah, we're going to Texas. That's happening, either Houston or Austin. And Atlanta, I guess, just passed a vote yesterday, I believe.
Yeah.
To barely, like 4-3, to reinvest or invest heavily into what will eventually be an NHL team returning there. Which
well,
is
they're
crazy.
hoping. I mean, they're going to be in the running.
They're getting a team.
Well, it could be Phoenix too, man. I mean,
which would be even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds that Atlanta would get a team for the third time, and I think likely fail for a third time. Going back to Phoenix would be so embarrassing. I wouldn't put it past Bettman trying to. He wants it. But the reasoning behind Atlanta, like, I can kind of understand it if it's based on U.S. TV markets. And Phoenix is a big one, too. Phoenix is a surprisingly very large market. I don't know, maybe surprising is the wrong word, but I don't know. Like, I wouldn't think of Phoenix as like a top 20 market, but I believe it is. But Atlanta and Houston are like top 10 markets.
Yes.
So they desperately want to get there. And TNT in particular, who's a league partner, is based out of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure they would probably be, secretly or quietly pushing for that. But the idea that they're going to get to 34 teams does feel like it's just a matter of time, right? It's going to happen. They're going to do this in the next 3 or 4 years, which is crazy. But the U.S. national TV games based on team this year, there are only 3 teams in the league that have 0 U.S. national games. Do you want to take a guess at which 3 teams those would be?
I would guess maybe the Winnipeg Jets.
Actually, they have one.
They have one.
They have one. The Winnipeg Jets are playing 1 U.S. national game.
Okay.
So there's 1 strike for you. I'll give you 3 strikes. You're thinking in the right.
Yeah.
You're in the right. Direction, I guess.
How's that little team from Ottawa doing?
Ottawa has 0 games.
Okay.
They have 0 U.S. national games. There's 1. What about the
Okay.
next 2?
How about the Abomination out in Vancouver?
That is another one. Vancouver has 0 U.S. national games. And the third one would be
the Calgary Flames.
The Calgary Flames. That is
Am I right?
correct.
Okay.
That is correct. The
Thank
Calgary
you.
Flames. Those are the 3. Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver. Again, not at all surprising based on Calgary and Vancouver have not been very good teams for a long time. And the U.S. national rights holders, they don't care about the Canadian markets.
No.
The Oilers play 8 times. And that, in my opinion, number should be a lot higher. Like, if this is where I'm always curious how Bettman doesn't get more involved. Because I get you're going to get Boston a ton. The Rangers are on 18 times. They stink.
Yeah.
They're awful, but it's New York, so they're going to get it. Philly's going to get it. Pittsburgh's going to get games. Detroit's going to get games. Like Chicago's got 17. They've been
That's
awful.
crazy.
They've been horrendous forever, and they're on 17 national games. But that's simply based on market, and I understand that. I get it. But how McDavid is only on 8 times is wild to me.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, again, ESPN, TNT would say we'd rather have We'd rather have Boston, New York than McDavid playing.
Yes.
And that's clearly what they're telling us. But how the league has not convinced these guys, you got to get McDavid playing on national TV in the U.S. Like, you got to.
I know.
And 8
not a
times,
priority.
Yeah, it's clearly not a priority. The Leafs are playing 3 times.
And that might speak to, Hayes, a lot of us that have been watching the game our whole lives are like, how could you go to 34 teams, right? Like, there's teams that can't find a number one center. There's not enough number one goalies to go around. There's not enough number one defensemen to go around, like true number ones, right? We all agree on that, right?
100%.
But I guess the point that they would make is that it doesn't matter because it's not about stars. It's not like McDavid. The fact they're only putting McDavid on national TV 8 times in the States tells you that the marketing is not about stars. It's about markets. It's about the crest. It's about the league at large. It's about, history and team spirit and all the rest of it.
You can have, but Bettman he's an enticing guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, clearly it's not a high priority. Like, they may argue, hey, 8 times for Edmonton, that is saying that we're platforming McDavid. They don't want to show Edmonton.
Yeah.
They look at Edmonton the same way they look at Calgary and Ottawa and Vancouver. Toronto getting 3 games, that's probably because of Matthews, and the Leafs have a little bit of a little bit of cachet because of their history.
He's Captain America.
Yeah, no, exactly. But Montreal has 6 games, and they were a very good team last year in the playoffs. But, again, you're right that this is about expansion dollars. They're not thinking about diluting the game. Their argument may be it actually is going to get sloppy, which is going to lead to more goal scoring and offense and lead changes, and they can market that better than a 2-1 game or a 1-0 game.
Yeah.
I can't really argue against that. But it's just going to get – it's natural. It's diluted. There's going to be 46 more players in the league that should not be or that would never have been in the league prior to these teams showing up. And it's going to make it possibly that much more difficult to create a winning team, a dynasty team. And if you're the Leafs, again, the last time they won, there were 6 teams. They went to 12 and they couldn't crack that nut.
No.
So I don't know if they have a leg to, a foot to stand on here. If they're like, hey man, 34, that's gonna be pretty tough. But it is a reality. It's just that, and they're gonna boost. They're gonna give these guys. Are gonna try to give them the Vegas treatment and get them off to a really good start.
Oh yeah, and they're gonna expand the playoffs, right? They're gonna definitely expand the playoffs.
Do you think they will?
Oh, without a doubt.
They have. Why have they not done it already? Then they've been on 16 forever. Since they had 21 teams in the league, they've only had 16 make.
In the interviews Bill Daly was doing over in that Germany media tour, he hinted at the fact that they don't want more than half the league missing the playoffs, which is what it would be. If it's 16 and there's 34 teams, you'd have 18 teams miss the playoffs.
So, but would they? Do you think they'll dance around that with it being a play-in as opposed to actually making the playoffs?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, Bettman has been adamant that he doesn't want to do the play-in. Mm-hmm. Maybe because he just doesn't want to be seen as, just ripping off the NBA so obviously, even though it's a good idea. I mean, it's working pretty well for the NBA.
Yeah, it's worked out all right.
But, yeah, who knows? Maybe, the play-in's a good concept, the 6 to 10 seeds, or 7 to 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, and those teams play, and you get a chance to be in.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, they're already playing 84 regular season games now. If you add that into your playoffs, how long is the season going to be?
Well, that's a problem.
That's something they got to figure out because it's an incredibly physical sport. And the idea of playing 84 regular season games and then waiting for your play-ins to, the NBA takes a week before they really get started. Because teams that, top 6 teams in the conference sit around for a week to wait for what's going to happen.
Which is actually good.
Yeah, it is. It is an advantage for
load management. Everybody can get healthy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the reason this is the most absurd preseason this year. We're seeing it for the first time. 84 game regular season. The Leafs have essentially 2 nights of preseason. There's 4 games because they're playing split squad games, 1 home, 1 away on both nights.
Yeah.
So it's 4 games technically, but it's just 2 nights of preseason.
They play
we've never seen before.
2 games in September this year.
Yeah.
They start their season back-to-back at home, the 29th and the 30th of September.
It's crazy.
They're making up those games basically in September.
Right.
Because I think their last home game or the last game of the regular season is April 9th or something like that. And then if you add in the World Cups every 4 years and the Olympics every 4 years, I don't know how they're going to fit all this stuff in with more teams and more games and obviously money talks, and if they're going to make money and they're going to get the expansion money, and TV companies are going to pay the money. And
think about it, man. Like, it's $2 billion for the expansion team now. That's what Bill Daly and Gary Bettman are telling people. Like, 10 years ago, Bill Foley out in Vegas paid $500 million. So it's gone up 4x in 10 years.
Incredible.
And Seattle got in for $650, and that's tripled from that, more than tripled from that now. And guess what? That $2 billion, that's $62.5 million per team. Just the owner's just getting a check.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah, it doesn't go to the players.
And they don't share it with the players, Hayes.
Yeah.
Because it's not hockey-related revenue, according to the CBA.
Which is amazing.
It's amazing. So they're going to get 62.5 on the Texas team, either Houston or Austin, and they're going to get another 62.5 on either Atlanta or Phoenix.
$125 million cash.
Just for doing nothing.
Just
letting these guys in the club.
Now, again, how short-sighted it is. I get you take the money, but now, again, you're diluting your product.
Yeah.
You're making it more difficult for your team to win just because you're competing against more teams now. You know?
That's true.
Like, if you're the Leafs, don't you want to go back to 6 teams?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Can we get a petition going? Let's get down to 6 teams here.
Let's form a super league of the rich teams.
Yeah. Like, the Leafs are the last team that ever won in the original 6.
Yeah.
Like, that's something to hold. You can hang your hat on that. Right? They're a 16-team league dynasty.
That's right.
You get this back to
the
6
60s
teams,
were great.
The Leafs just pick up on the dynasty.
They were a dynasty in the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to that.
I mean, if it was about making the league better, if it was about making the product better, you would contract.
Yeah.
And have like a
and you
second
play less
division.
games.
You play less games, you'd contract, you'd have a second division, you'd have like a Premier League, championship league like you do in English soccer, where it's like you got the 20 best teams in the Premier League, and you got this next league down that can come up if they win that league, relegation promotion. That's what they're going to do on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
You're going to say, hey, we got the best 120 players here. We're going to have another feeder tour that if you play well enough down there, you'll get promoted, and we're going to kick off the guys that don't perform up here. And like to your point about meritocracy, when we were talking about Vladdy not getting moved down the lineup, we like to see a meritocracy, right? It's human nature to want to see if you play well, you get rewarded. If you don't play well, you get demoted. It's
going to be tough if Austin and Atlanta show back up and just immediately are competitive teams.
Yeah.
Because, Vegas still is an outlier. Like all the other expansion teams over history, Seattle's
not doing much.
Seattle's not doing anything. Like they made the playoffs their second year, just got in, lost quickly, and they have blended into the league in remarkable fashion.
Yeah.
Like they are really a non-existent team.
Seriously, like there's nothing.
It's bizarre. They have no identity whatsoever.
Yeah. Vegas in 10 years has built like an ironclad identity.
Yes.
Like what they are, how they operate.
Needle-moving team.
Yeah.
In pro sports.
Yeah.
Seattle is a team that is existing in the league. It's wild how quickly they blended in.
Yeah.
And, so that is the question for these next 2 teams coming in. Who's going to be Vegas? Who's going to be Seattle?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's fascinating.
It'll come down to ownership, I guess, and management, who they
Well,
hire
yeah, it's ultimately it's about who you hire, right?
Yeah.
It's about who you put around the team and how they operate. And Kelly McCrimmon has set a tone, and George McPhee has set a tone.
For sure, and Bill Foley, the owner.
Bill Foley.
Yeah, like Bill Foley, he has a clear mandate. You got to win. You got to find and be ruthless to do it. And
yeah,
he
you're right.
executed that plan.
Yeah, it comes from the top, man. It comes from the top. It's like Bill Foley was calling his shot. We're going to be a cup contender right out of the gate, and they were.
They were.
Amazing.
Okay, I got a couple of arbitrations I want to throw your way.
All right.
Because we're still waiting on Quinn Hughes, right? We don't know what's going to happen here. The Minnesota Wild, they walk into arbitration, and they are handed a 3-year extension for Quinn Hughes at the maximum 20% of the salary cap. Do they take it or leave it?
Well,
highest paid guy in the history of the salary cap era on a 3-year deal. You're not getting the max. 3 years at 20%, whatever that happens to be for this upcoming or next season, what they project that to be.
Well, given that these are the guys that just gave Kirill Kaprizov $17 million over what, 5 years, was it? Yeah. I mean, I think they're probably going to take that.
Yeah. You're talking a $22, $23 million cap hit, something like that.
And they're probably thinking, we didn't even think we were going to be able to sign this guy. The whole league's been telling us he's going to do the Kachuk brother act and get out of here and go play with his brother. And so you take what you can get. Like, Kaprizov's, like 29 years old. You got to maximize the now in Minnesota. So 3 years of one of the best defensemen on the planet. I mean, whether you got to pay him 18, 19, 20, what's the difference as long as you got him on your team?
Yeah, I think I'm taking it too because of how confident I am in him being a phenomenal player. Is anyone worth that amount? You can make that argument based on marketing and all that kind of stuff. That certainly McDavid should be making way more than he's making. But we do live in a finite world where the number is the number, and it's a hard cap, and there's nothing more you can do. There's no getting out of it. There's no flexibility. There's no analytical line that you can find that can, get you some sort of cutting edge. But Minnesota is in it to win it. They were one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the regular season last year. And they beat Dallas, and then they ran into a buzzsaw in the second round.
Yeah.
But they're a very, very good team. And Kaprizov's there, and Boldy's there, and they feel good about their goaltending. I would do it. And I would it's a 3-year window, and then he's probably going to leave, and they're going to have to cut a couple of pieces to make make it work for him and Kaprizov, because that's the new big 2 in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he doesn't, this is a hypothetical, but let's say he does re-sign there for the next 2 or 3 years. He's going to be making a fortune. He's going to make more than Kaprizov, in my opinion. I don't think there's any questioning that.
Doesn't feel like
he's making $18 million plus a year. So you're talking about 2 guys making $35 million on your cap.
It'd be hard to win.
Like, that's a lot of money to 2 players.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to do it, if one of them's a winger, the other one, I think, better be a defenseman that can play more minutes than anybody else on your team and have an effect on every single possible element of your squad, and that's Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Like, he's the top 7 or 8 player in the world.
Oh yeah,
great player.
As long as he's happy and he's committed to being there.
I'm looking forward to seeing because it does, like, Jack Hughes, I think, has 3 years left on his deal in New Jersey, and that is the thought that maybe he signs a 2-year extension or whatever. Syncs it up with Jack. Lines it up with Jack, and then they hit free agency together.
As a package deal. Wouldn't that be something?
But where would they want to play? How much money is that going to look like? And how much of a gamble is it, like, what you are as a player 3 years from now? They're still relatively young guys. Quinn's the oldest, and what's he, 28?
26.
He's 26,
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, in 3 years, these guys are still going to be great players. But I would have to believe people in New Jersey are thinking, are we going to screw this up? Like, we got both brothers. We got 2 of the 3. We got to get the third one here.
Yeah, Joe from the Bridge points out Jack has 4 years left on his deal.
Yeah, well, this year and then 3.
Yeah,
That's
3 more after this. Yeah,
Quinn has this year, and then if he signs a 3-year extension, that would.
I like where you're coming from. Yeah, they grew up in the GTHL, Hayes.
Oh, you think Toronto could be a part of the future?
They feel at home in Toronto.
Do they feel at home in Toronto? They should. I mean, they literally did. They played for the Marlins.
I saw them all play. They all played in the GTHL.
They all played in the GTHL. Huge part of their upbringing. 100%. But they have really leaned in, the 2 of them, to being the Captain America type.
I get it. No, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying they feel at home in Toronto.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
They also feel at home in Florida.
Florida is an interesting one because if the Chuck brothers are there, there's no room for the Hughes brothers, too. I can't imagine.
But we're talking 4 years from now.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. Matthew Tkachuk's body is not going to, the way he plays, what's his shelf life?
Well, I was thinking that yesterday, like there's that clip that's circulating that's gone viral of the Tkachuk brothers and Brady talking about how he always gets booed when he's in Canada. And it's not a new clip. It was from years ago or months ago. And he said, in Toronto, they booed me the most. And then, I always get, and it's like, obviously, you're the captain of the Ottawa Senators. Like, of course you're going to get booed. And you're a Tkachuk. Your brothers, left Canada and,
you're fighting Canada.
Yeah. Like, there's obviously you're going to get booed.
Right.
But I was thinking about where he lines up in terms of, like, villains on that team. And I never thought of Brady as a villain. He is now, especially in Ottawa, clearly. But he is way down the list for me.
Oh, yeah.
Behind his brother, clearly. Behind Sam Bennett. Behind Brad Marchand. He's at maybe he's 4th. Like maybe. And he's not even close to those 3 guys.
No.
And if you're looking at it through the lens of, like, the Maple Leafs, Ottawa is obviously different, but if you're a Maple Leaf fan, it's Marchand 1 for me, Bennett 2, Matthew 3.
Where's Radko Gudas fall in there?
That's a great point. Gudas is definitely in the top 4. So at most, he's 5th.
Yeah.
At best, he's 5th. Like,
You're right.
So he won't even be acknowledged when he gets to Toronto.
That's a good point.
He's actually going to stop. He's going to stop being booed when he plays the Leafs. No one cares that he left Ottawa. No one cares here. What do they care?
They're going to be booing Gudas for taking out Matthews' knee. They're going to boo Marchand just because he's Marchand. He's killed you 1,000
Bennett's
times.
getting booed all the time. And everyone hates Matthew Tkachuk.
That's right.
And he embraces it.
You're right.
He's fifth at best. And you can make an argument, maybe Ekblad. I don't know. Probably
but that's
other guys. But,
like, there's no other team that comes close of having guys that Leaf fans can't stand.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even close.
Yeah,
like, they're all on one team, basically.
They're all on one team. And, like, Brady Tkachuk is a guy, like, Leaf fans obviously didn't like him because he was the captain of Ottawa Senators. And, that just goes with the territory. I mean, it goes both ways. People in Ottawa don't like Matthews. They don't like Nick Suzuki, et cetera, whatever. That's fandom. That's the way it goes. But he will not even be acknowledged as a Florida Panther when he plays in Toronto. I really don't think he will be. It'll be intriguing because it's great hockey market and people are like, all right, I want to see what he looks like. But the hate meter, he's fifth at best.
Yeah, he's an afterthought. He really is.
Complete afterthought. I forgot Gudas was back there too. That's a great point. That's actually the better question. I might have to come up with that list. Like I have always been of the belief, and I still am. I will reveal my number one on the list. It's Brad Marchand forever.
Yes.
Because of his history in Boston more than anything in Florida. But Marchand is number one, and he plays it up so beautifully with Leaf fans.
Yeah.
I think Gudas is probably number two now because you have an acute moment. I know Bennett with Stolarz and all that. Bennett with Nyes a couple years before that. But the Gudas Matthews hit now lives in infamy in this market.
Yes.
And Gudas has his own history with the team and screaming in the face of Joseph Woll.
Remember that iconic photo?
Yeah. So I think I'd go on the fly. Marchand 1, Gudas 2, Bennett 3, Matthew Tkachuk 4, Brady Tkachuk 5. That's probably my list.
I mean, Sam Bennett, who basically flipped the series by taking out Stolarz.
That was game one, and they won that game.
I mean, and he's down the list.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Well, and some would argue, like Jonas, I think, wrote an article for The Athletic saying that Bennett is the number one public enemy. I think he said in Leaf history.
Yeah, but he acknowledged that. I think Jonas acknowledged he wasn't really going through history. He was just doing his kind of era.
Modern day, this era.
His era.
Which, I understand that argument. I think it's wrong, and I told him that. It's clearly Brad Marchand over Sam Bennett.
By a mile. By a mile. I completely agree.
Close.
Yeah.
But I think you can make an argument now over the last 6 months, Gudas has jumped over Bennett for me.
Yeah. And the only other guy that would even come close in terms of guys that played in our lifetime will be standing on the Leafs bench as an assistant coach.
Daniel
Alfredsson.
Which I still haven't wrapped my head around.
I know. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. Like Daniel Alfredsson is an assistant coach for the Maple Leafs.
I can't believe it.
It is. That's going to be weird to see, man.
It really will.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see.
It really will be strange.
Anyway. All right, best bets coming up. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
this fall on TSN.
Buckle your seatbelts.
NFL season kicks off.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
The puck drops for the Habs, Jets, Sens, and Leafs.
What a play!
The Raps are back, and so much more. TSN, Canada sports leader. Subscribe now.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Tour Championship tomorrow. Back where it all started for Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy getting 18-1 to win it back-to-back.
Okay.
I kind of like that because, he's been hanging around all season. He finally won there last year. 30 guys, East Lake. He knows it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to sprinkle on Tommy this week. And I also put a little sprinkle on Sam Burns. Sammy's been right in the hunt so many times this year. I just don't think Scheffler with the hand, foot, mouth, and all that. I don't think it's going to happen. McRae had a really good week last week.
Yeah.
Faded a bit on Sunday. Well, in particular, when Wyndham Clark came back to the field, and then all of a sudden he bogeys a hole. Wyndham birdies it. Rest is history. But Sam Burns and Tommy Fleetwood, those are my plays this week.
Sam Burns, enemy of the station.
Yes, he is, unfortunately, but not when it comes to betting. And our best bets powered by FanDuel. Same game parlays available for every PGA Tour event on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. All right, Jays Royals tonight. Some injury news again. We mentioned for the Oilers, number of guys are going to miss camp, including Freddie Anderson, who suffered an injury off-season training. That's trouble.
37 in October, man. Doesn't get easier.
Yeah. Well, and he's coming off a Cup win. And up until the end, he was the man, right? Bussy went in the Cup final. But Freddie gave him some pretty good minutes. And you just know what you're getting at. Freddie's going to give you like 20 games or something. And he's back with Babcock.
I'm sure Babcock wanted to play him 50.
Yeah, he probably would.
If he could.
Yeah, he probably would.
Played him 60-something every year in Toronto.
Tristan Jarry, step on up. That's not coming up enough. That you got Babcock, and I think they're going to be incredibly inspired in Edmonton. Long off season, first time in a few years where that's been the case. Who's in net?
Devin Levi.
Yeah, who's making stops for you? That'll be
that could be a problem. I don't think coaching was so much the problem as goaltending.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
We'll see about that.
We'll see. All right, Dave. Good stuff. Thanks as always. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web up on YouTube Live, and streaming soon up on Crave. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.
up-tempo basketball. Friday on TSN.
This is going to be one great night.
SportsCenter begins with news from the Edmonton Oilers. Frederik Andersen is not expected to participate in training camp next month. Andersen is currently recovering from an injury sustained during his off-season training. Matthias Janmark, Matt Savoie, and Alec Rugula will also miss training camp in September.